Today, we got some interesting stuff happening around solar storms. This struck me really interesting. I had no idea that the US election and solar storms and the stock market all have a thread going through them. This is fascinating. So tell me first, the outlier here is the solar storms. Give us some
Sure.
background on what's happening with that.
Well, this is very topical right now. So we've brought it to the front for the latest edition of the Market Timing Report. And the whole idea really is that, you see the sun emit these flares, and we've had extremes of weather. A lot of people are seeing the northern lights, the aurora borealis, in places where
Right.
it's never been seen before. So what's this all about? Well, the idea is that there is a definite correlation, which has now been, scientifically proven between the level of emissions of CMEs, coronal mass ejections, flares, and so on, and the amount of this geomagnetic energy that's radiating towards the Earth and human behavior. So the whole thing is that we can see real extremes of behavior. And when you get some large flares coming out, basically, this seems to sort of impact people in terms of optimism and pessimism. And a guy called Edgar Lawrence Smith first talked about this in a book called Tides in the Affairs of Man. And the more we've been researching this now for a pretty long time, and we haven't really gone too openly about it. Now, there's a difference here. The guys at NASA, they're scientists. They're looking at the sun and they'll see a flare pop out and they go, there's a flare popping out. Ah, good day. It's work at the observatory here.
Right.
We're
They're
different.
calculating numbers and doing science work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Now, ever since we sort of started researching this notion that is there a correlation between the increase in geomagnetic energy and say geopolitical events, because remember we track geopolitical events mathematically, right? We look at these time cycles and markets, and there definitely is. We've really found that this is so important. So this is the whole thing. Not only that, then for the past probably 15 years, we've been developing algorithms that are predictive, which people say can't be done, and we've put a lot of time and computing into this. And we have got a good handle on being able to say, well, we're coming up to another time, another area of high intensity potential geomagnetic activity, i.e. solar storms. The idea is, so this is the key point, if we know when there's going to be a flare up in solar geomagnetic activity, then we're also in a position to say, how is that going to impact the markets? Okay.
Right.
Or how is it going to impact a geopolitical situation? Now, in terms of the markets, that's an easy one because we already got our mathematical predictive models, which
Wait. Before you
working.
get to that, let me just get the basics. Okay, so you're saying, just to sum it up for everybody, is solar flares have an impact on human behavior. It impacts our mood. I'm presuming that because this is a electromagnetic event and our brains operate with electromagnetic signals, that it's impacting them. And this can fluctuate our moods, make us more moody, make us more pessimistic or optimistic. But the range of mood is going much bigger range than what's normal. And we know that politics and the markets are really based on human behavior and human mood. And so that's the connection of solar storms to politics and the markets, right?
That's it. So that's exactly it. The idea is that you remember what is a market? What are the numbers in the market? I've got my trading screens here. These markets are moving down. They're a summation of the net human sentiment at this moment in time.
Right.
That's what price is, yeah? Or a trend,
Yeah.
if it's an uptrend when a market's going up, Bitcoin, you got to get into this. So you get the euphoric moves up. Joe Public gets in at the end. And the opposite, when a market's crashing, this is going to go to zero. Oh, there's blood on the streets. So there's this extremes of sentiment, which of course, and these coincide with some degree of, not always, I mean, it might well be always, we haven't figured it out yet. We're just in the infancy of our research. Oh, actually, we're pretty advanced with it, but we've still got a long way to go. So, maybe they're correlating with space weather events, but they're also correlating with our mathematical cycles. So the idea is that we have a mathematical cycle window and it correlates with a potential space weather window. That's going to be a bigger event or a bigger trend reversal or a bigger,
So you're tracking all kinds of mathematical patterns. And we know that, and your research is showing that with the solar flare-ups, those are following a mathematical pattern. That And when you have the mathematical pattern, obviously patterns are predictable. That's why human beings obviously love patterns, because we can predict the future with them. But what you're saying is, okay, here's this solar cycle that's happening now, and we can predict them in the future, but overlay that with more data of other mathematical cycles that impact geopolitics and also impact the markets. And when you see, to use a very astronomical term, when you see a convergence of those cycles,
Yeah.
that's when we know probability is really high of some big type of event going on. And if I have this correctly, in your world, that signals that a reversal of trend in the stock market is more likely than not to occur in this time frame. Is that right?
Yeah. So look, nothing's for certain, but the idea is
Right.
that it creates a much more heightened sentiment. That's the key
Right.
point.
Yeah, and the
Therefore,
markets run and politics run in sentiment.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly right. You know what? You know, this is very, very important time as we record this. We're just days away from the U.S. election, so
right.
sentiment is running very high on both sides, and it's the same with the markets. So you get the sentiment, and if they're aligning with the mathematical cycles, then we know it's not just going to be a smaller change in trend; it's likely to be a bigger change in trend, and
Right.
and it occurs across a whole different host. You know, we can see this at gold patterns, we can see it in the stock market. There are different algorithms, and
This is fascinating. Andy, thank you so much for giving us some more insight about sunspots, presidential elections, the stock market, macro cycles, convergence of mathematical cycles, and lowering our overall risk and increasing our certainty of a move in the markets. That's been. I have a feeling there's a lot more to this, and we will be discussing that in other episodes. So you have a new market timing report coming out, don't you?
yes, in fact, it's just come out today. And what we have in there is all the key timing points for the month. We've got a bit of an expanded section on the space weather, but most importantly, there is one instrument out of the 6 that we cover, which is, you know, the S&P, crude oil, gold, dollar index, euro, and Bitcoin. There is one instrument there that's got a significant reversal coming up in it this month, and I think that's going to be very, very important. So that's all in there. In fact, the dates for all of these instruments are in there, where we can, you know, help you manage the risk effectively. There's also a pretty strong set, as I mentioned earlier, a geopolitical peak, not just around the election. There's another one in the month, so we're going to see some ramifications around those dates, and again, we've popped them in there for you.
Looking forward to it. I got my copy, and if that is something that you all are interested in, go check it out at markettimingreport.com, and there you can find access to the latest edition of the Market Timing Report. Thanks, Andy. Good to talk with you.
Take care.